Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. I was absolutely delighted to be asked to look at this amended edition of Anthony Seldon's book on the Fourth Education Revolution. This is Reconsidered, is the title. This is the paperback here. It's got a title, Will Artificial Intelligence Enrich or Diminish Humanity? And Sir Anthony has come up, I think, with a really brilliant book. I will say right at the beginning and stress it, all the royalties from the sale of this book go to the Jo Cox Foundation. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to review the book, because I think that's an extremely worthwhile cause. It comes to us from the University of Buckingham Press, and I've given the title of this short book review, Seldon is Superb, with his contemporary review of education for the 2020s. Now, I come to this as a barrister at law and as a teacher. I have a PGC and I taught special education needs learners. I found that a very interesting experience because doing the PGCE itself gave me a different outlook. I deal with family law predominantly at the moment at the bar, although I do commercial work too. But I certainly found this book very interesting, looking at it from two angles. One is my professional work at the bar and also as a teacher, because the book itself is a really interesting book. It's not difficult to read either. It's one that I looked at, and my wife did. We looked at it and we didn't really put it down until we'd gone through it. There's the paperback anyway, it's there, front page, spine. You probably can't see much of that because it's all inverted and it's very difficult to read, but the book itself has a good index at the back by page numbering. It's got some photographs, which is the various models. I'm going to go to the photographs first because that's the first one, the 3.0. You've got various pictures, and it's very difficult. I don't want to break the copyright or anything, but it gives you the 4.0 education model, which is looking at where we're going in the future, and then there's the other model, schools and colleges and universities, what they're going to be like in the future, be without walls and open to world rather than having rigid walls and so on. Now, I say that because this book has been written specifically because of the COVID problem that we have. There's the front page there. You can see that. Two other people have been involved in writing this book, and I must give them a mention. Timothy Metcalf and Oladimiji, I do apologise, Oladimiji Obidoyi. I think that's how it's pronounced. I really do have a difficulty. I'm not very good with names, but I think it's Abidoyi. I believe that's correct, and I do apologise if I've got the name wrong. There's the blurb here. There's a dedication. I only review books that I like and I think are very good and of practical value for what I do as a professional, and have taken interest, and this particularly interested me. And I did like the picture at the beginning, Benz, the business of the Benz company, Carl Benz, 1886. You look at the people there, and what it says actually is Benz had just helped invent the internal combustion engine. People had no idea how the invention would take off, how it would transform human life on the planet. The comparison is flawed, though, in one respect. AI, that's artificial intelligence, will be more transformative than the car and will transport humans much, much further. That's taken from an extract from chapter 5. A very important point. Now, Seldon's publication, well, he's got to blow his own trumpet, hasn't he, Anthony? Quite right too. These are the very substantial works that he's written. He's well known, you'll see him on television. I've seen him at party conferences. I'm a Conservative and so is he. And he's produced some very interesting publications over the years. That's the contents section, starting with an introduction, actually answering the question. Then the four revolutions in education, starting with the history of it, working all the way through. I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail. Chapter 5 looks at education 4.0, as I think it will become known as, if it isn't already. Then finally, Chapter 10, the impact of AI on life and society, and I'm particularly interested in that from a point of law. And then, of course, recommendations at the back. You've then got, again, some nice pictures. Picture of Cinderella. I don't exactly know which Cinderella that is, but it is, and of course it then goes, will AI enrich or diminish humanity? You can see, just looking at it, there is a little bit of footnoting, but you do find that it's very easy to read. Again, footnoting. So the way to do it is just read through it. That's what I did, and pick out what I was interested in. Then going to the back of the book, you've got some acknowledgements right at the back with the thanks to the people. Then there are pictures of the co-authors, and of course there's Anthony himself there. And again, as I say, you do have some recommendations. And he comes up with the rule of, I don't want to be rude about Boris Johnson, but he comes up with the rule of 5, not the rule of 6. 5 threats posed by AI. And then he talks about other things. 5 possible courses of action. 5 educational beliefs. 5 leading nations blocks. 5 final reflections. And then a conclusion. Big thinkers. 3 big thinkers. 1 synthesis. So as you can see, I thought this was a good book, and I'm going to say why, because I think anyone who's doing a PGCE should read it. I think teachers should read it, because I think it redresses the left-wing balance quite nicely, because what he's doing is he's talking about looking at education from basically from a different point of view. The Ken Baker point of view, my point of view, that the point of view of those people who are not aligned directly to socialism and directly to what I consider to be extreme left thinking, because what we're doing here is a review of education and where we're going. Now, bearing in mind what we've got a government that's going to be in power for another 4 years probably. So in that time, once we pass the pandemic period, I think we're going to start looking at Boris Johnson and the way he's going to run his government with the urgently needed reforms in a whole range of areas, including education. So let me quote a little bit about what Seldon says in the book, so that you've got some flavour of it and why you should read it. He's a prominent political biographer and a Tory, and actually a leading educationalist. He doesn't really need much explanation because of his background with the University of Buckingham and various public schools. So he will be automatically disliked intensely by a certain group of people. Forget all of that. Let's look and see what he actually says, because he addresses one of what is, quote, the high stakes issues that will influence our future, the role of AI and its impact on education. We're beginning to see that with COVID, just as we're seeing it in the courts after years of argument and problems. And I've had to deal with it in the courts, and I've been appalled at the attitude of the troglodyte civil service and other organisations who really have tried to stop everything that we wanted to do. Now, when I did the PGCE, I started using the technology in a way I'd never used it before, spread over 30 years of teaching in the army and various other places where I spent 25 years teaching part-time as a tutor with the National Extension College, law, but that was all done by correspondence course because I got my degree that way and I found it useful to do it that way. But everything was overtaken by the technology. We're now moving to the next phase because the use of AI promises what Seldon says, an altogether new way of educating, offering learners from all backgrounds widespread access to personalised tuition and digital educational materials from across the world. Now that's very important. Teaching at the National Extension College, I had students from every continent bar Antarctica, and when I left after 23 years because I retired, I was still working on getting someone from Antarctica doing a correspondence course, or distance learning as it's now called. I think that may have happened. But the point is things have changed because it opened the world up, because I had so many students across the globe. And it was great. Very interesting, because I was teaching law, very interesting view on the common law jurisdiction that had taken English law to the colonies, the Commonwealth and so forth, whatever you want to call them in the past. These countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America, Africa, all of them, and India, very, very important, because educational institutions across the world have been impacted, of course, by the virus, and obviously many have migrated, at least temporarily, to what are called online platforms. Now, I'm a member of the board at the London University Worldwide Organisation, and we've been developing this for some time because it's a worldwide university. It's part of, obviously it's London University, but it's where I got my degree, and it's also, we're looking at the type of platforms for the future, because that is the future in my opinion. The debate, of course, about how to deliver knowledge has therefore never been more relevant than it is now. And of course many countries have an excellent education system. And of course both their schools and their universities are very good. They're excellent in their own way, but of course they're tailored to the 20th century. And of course the problem we've now got is the mass teaching methods of the third revolution era, as he calls it, have failed to conquer enduring problems of inequity and the lack of individualised learning. Now that's really where I think we're moving to, because the days when I would get up for an hour and speak and give a lecture have gone. The days when I would be teaching in a particularly different way have all, I think, really gone. And so we're going to be looking at a very different way to do it, because what we've got at the moment is AI disrupting the way we live, we work, we interact with the environment and with everybody else. We can't just suddenly stop and change everything, but we've got a little bit of time to think about this new fourth revolution, and that's what Anthony is really talking about here. It's not a panacea, and if we are not quick, it will start to replace what makes us human. In other words, being creative, having our own beliefs, having the woke culture or the cancel culture, and loving other people, and without having all these problems associated with what you can and can't do. Now, I think that's an important way forward, because what we've got here is an updated and extended second edition of his original work looking at this, but now reflecting on where we're actually moving to, because it's a call, and this is the quote, a call to educators everywhere to open their eyes to what is coming in the future. And if we do so, then the future will be shaped by us, he says, for the common interests of humanity. But if we don't, then it's going to be imposed and we'll all lose, because there's nothing worse. It's like a judgment. If in fact I cannot get a judgment by consent, which means that the parties, they may be moaning a bit, like mediation, where they accept, have to give in a bit. It's not being imposed. If the judge says, look, I'm going to have to impose these rules, these orders on you, nobody's going to like it then. So therefore, let's pick and choose before that happens. And I think it's why this book is so useful. So thank you very much to Sir Anthony Seldon and all the people involved, to Timothy Metcalfe and Mr. Abidoyi. So I'm not going to try to pronounce the first name. I do apologise again for my lack of ability to pronounce some names. The date of publication is cited as at the 5th of October, and I'm recording the this particular review at that time, and I think it's a very welcome and thoughtful way forward for the way in which we're looking at education in the 21st century. Thank you, Anthony. Bye-bye.